Absolutely. Well, I grew up in San Diego, California, in a neighborhood called Ocean Beach. And when I was 16, I got a job as a human directional from a staffing company. And we used to hold the signs on the side of the corner. I think everybody's seen them out there. And it was really boring. I mean, it's hot, it's the middle of the summer. You've got the exhaust fumes beating on your face. So we quickly decided that there had to be a better way. The job paid really well. We were making 9.45, $10 an hour, but it was miserable. And we were just so fortunate that that same summer, the first ever X Games was held right there in Mission Beach, a few blocks away from where we grew up. And so this idea of skateboarding and surfing and now competing and having an annual competition for these things, we took it and sort of applied it to our job to make it more fun. So when we would work across the street from one another, my friends and I, we would compete to see who could throw it the highest, spin it the fastest, and then we started integrating skateboarding tricks and dance moves to, entertain ourselves and the people that drove by. And what evolved was a new way of doing things. Our bosses didn't exactly care for the fact that sometimes we would drop the sign or that we were more into our routine than, focusing on pointing the right way. But we decided that this made it a lot more fun and we were smiling. And at the end of the day, that reflected better on our customers and they saw better results. So yeah, that was when we were in high school, and I ended up going off to college in Washington D.C. To be honest with you, it was after I approached him with the idea, and they just didn't call me back. And it was after my freshman year at Georgetown. I went off to college in Washington, D.C., and a friend of mine from New York was already running his own car business. And he was only 18, 19 years old. And he said, listen, you could just go get a business license and a website and, your own business cards. And he was really who sort of inspired me to take that leap of faith to become an entrepreneur. And I'll never forget it because when we came back for summer vacation that year, instead of getting that same staffing job, we went and we started our own company. And we called it Arrow Advertising. And literally, we had about $500 in the beginning that I had saved up from tutoring my freshman year. And we bought a printer and we got the do-it-yourself business cards from Staples and we started to cut them out into the shape of arrows. And we realized after a while that you couldn't keep them in your wallet and go spinning because then you would sweat and the ink would run. So we really wanted to save up for a laser jet printer. That was one of our first goals. Absolutely. First and foremost, you got to thank number one. My mom is probably the most inspirational force in my life, even today. She did a great job raising me as a single mom, but she was a criminal public defender her entire life, and so has a little bit of a legal background and applied it to helping me at least fill out the forms correctly and at first apply for that sole proprietorship status. It wasn't very difficult, but I think that same resource is provided by a lot of business professors or business incubators. A lot of attorneys will definitely help you out with that. But yeah, definitely mom number one, and then my friend from freshman year at Georgetown number two. I would say that was a huge impetus in helping me get started. We just wanted to be part of X Games. I mean, we decided, hey, when we were growing up, snowboarding wasn't a sport. And then all of a sudden, it's in the X Games, it's in the Olympics. So if you want to be a sport, you need a noun and a present participle. We wanted to be in the X Games for sign spinning. So that's what we decided to call it. And we saw X Games with people flying from all over the world to compete in this sport. And I mean, we were 18, 19 years old at the time. So we literally said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had people flying in from all over the world to compete at sign spinning? And so that was really one of our original goals. And I think we've, developed a business around that dream and around that vision. And that's one of the reasons we had to commercialize it, because in order for the sport to continue, there had to be some money there. Yes and no. I think I was supposed to be a lawyer, but I was always entrepreneurial in the fact that I like to work for myself. In high school, I was a DJ, and I guess had a, sort of under the table DJ business where I DJed weddings, birthday parties, school dances, and things like that.
And
Yeah, that was kind of my first business venture.
how big was that?
I did okay. I was one of the first people with a CD burner. So I sold mixtapes, out of the back of my trunk. I wasn't quite Funkmaster Flex, but I was Mixmaster Max. So no, I did okay. I think I was making like $10,000, $15,000 a year in my junior, senior year in high school as like a DJ. And I worked at Jamba Juice too. So I always had a combination, multiple streams of revenue. I like to have my hands in different things. It was tagged across the back of my car, and I drove a bright blue rice rocket. So it was hard to miss from a marketing standpoint. And I DJ'd in the middle of the quad every day at lunch at school. So I had a good brand following as far as the Mixmaster Max thing was concerned. So there wasn't a lot of hiding it. I was pretty flashy, I would say, just with my personality. And I really enjoyed the fact that I always had a job, even a legitimate job. I started working when I was, 13, 14 years old, as soon as I could get a worker's permit, and always had multiple jobs. So I believe in hard work. I think a balance of school and work between the ages of, 16 and whenever you graduate and finish with your degree is really the way to go about it, especially as a young person. You've got that energy. You really have to focus, I think, on both aspects of life there. And going to school is your job. So that's part of it. And I really like the continued education combined with the practical work experience. So I think I'm still trying to do that. I think there's always room for improvement, and that's one of the reasons that I wake up early every day, is that I definitely strive to make those improvements as an individual and to lead my team in the right direction. I'm proud of personal accomplishments that I've made, and definitely team accomplishments, most importantly, because I think it's one thing to sort of achieve greatness on your own, but to bring others with you and to lead them in the right direction, that really requires more effort and sort of a deeper understanding, I think, of not just leadership, but management, psychology, business in general. And executing that vision for me has been very rewarding because I still get to work with a lot of the people that I grew up with, the guys from the neighborhood, the original sign spinners, we've been in business together for 10 years. And to get to travel the world and spin signs is really, it's a dream come true. So I would say that part is definitely something to be proud of. And then I think the fact that it's allowed me to continue my education and combining being an entrepreneur with getting in a degree and going back to school again for my master's, that was really rewarding because it showed me that you don't have to take this traditional path that people have laid out for you, even if one of your, I think, end goals is teaching or is writing and publishing, that we need people that take entrepreneurship just as serious as we have people that take any sort of other profession out there. Yeah, I would say I still feel hungry, and I come up with ways to keep myself feeling that way. I think the intrinsic motivation is definitely still there, but I like having external reminders of why I'm in the game and why I didn't just go get a 9 to 5 and go take that path. So I love that part about being an entrepreneur, and definitely I think have a much bigger vision than where I am. But when you put all that out there, it gets a little scary. But yeah, I would love to have probably 10 to 100 times as many spinners and have the company vertically integrated across a couple of lines and a couple bigger name clients and, a lot more revenue. So the vision's always out there, and I think that's what's great. And then, when people ask you, what's your end game? It's tough to imagine not continuing to work on something that you're so passionate about. To be 100 times better, I would really try and sort of replicate my corporate team, 100 times over or 20 times over. I think we've got a pretty good team so far, and investing in them is something that has, I think, residual benefits. So when we go through formal training together, learn new computer applications, implement new software, do team bonding stuff, I think that that's one of the ways that we scale up faster. It's definitely building a winning team as opposed to just spending time by yourself. And as an entrepreneur, that was difficult for me to learn because, I was used to doing everything in the beginning. When you're a small startup, you kind of have your hands in everything, and it's a lot of do it yourself. But as the business grows, it really does become about that team and the team dynamic, not just putting any team together, but a team that likes working together and has chemistry. It's just like winning a championship in any sort of major sport. Okay, so we went that whole summer and we didn't get really any clients, and we were out of money. I had convinced all my friends not to get summer jobs and that we were going to start this company, and the whole thing looked like a bad idea until at the end of the summer we got this furniture store to try us out for one weekend, and they just wanted one spinner and one sign. And the guy that was the manager there was the dad of a kid we went to high school with. So he's going to pay us $250 for the job. So I go out there and I'm personally spinning it myself the first weekend. And the CEO of this store comes to do an inspection on the store. And an elderly lady walks in randomly off the street right up to the CEO and says, "I've never heard of your company, and I've never seen your store before, but that young man outside was doing such a great job that I had to come in. And so she bought a California King Tempur-Pedic adjustable mattress from the CEO himself. And these things cost like $5,000.
Oh
It's the most
wow.
expensive product in the store. And he is extremely pleased, to say the least. And
Are
so
you sure that
he
wasn't your grandmother?
Hey, listen, Grandma lives in Chicago. She might have been in town, but no, this was a really random occurrence. We were very fortunate. That's why you work hard, you get lucky. I think it's one of those things. But he walked out to the corner and gave me a list of all of his stores across the country. And there were four more in San Diego, and there were half a dozen in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, which is where I was going to school. No, I mean the bright blue Honda Civic that I drove in high school. I had to sell that in order to finance the accounts receivable from Healthy Bag. I didn't realize what net 30 meant until I didn't get my money 3 weeks later. Right. So I think that's one of the things I would caution people on. It does take some money to get into business. Getting a big client like that is a double-edged sword because yes, you've got this client, but now you've also got this account payable in the form of these payroll liabilities. So I'm out there and I've got to pay my friends. I mean, these are guys I grew up with, and I owe them a bunch of money for spinning signs, and the client hasn't paid me. And so I had to sell my car in order to make payroll. So when you send a client an invoice, if they tell you their terms are net 30, that means once they get the invoice, it takes them 30 days to pay it. So I learned that the hard way. And if you promise your employees you're going to pay them every 2 weeks, you end up having to pay them twice
Wow.
before the client pays you once. Yeah, absolutely. And your cash conversion cycle is sometimes dependent upon your industry and adjacent industries. For instance, a lot of our clients these days are major home builders, and they'll say, we want 100 sign spinners across the country, but it takes us 90 days to pay our bills. And if you don't give them the contract, they go with your competitor. So you're really in a bind because you don't want to lose that market share. So not only do they dictate a lower price, oftentimes they dictate the terms of the, accounts receivable. And that forces you to go and get outside financing or to allocate your own profit and your own reserves in order to acquire the client. So these are decisions that you have to make as an entrepreneur. Is it worth saving up that profit in order to give credit to a client? Yeah, absolutely. I think taking the ceiling off of the earning potential was really one of the things. And at the time, I was young, and I think motivated by materialism too. I'm not gonna lie. In hindsight, I can go back and say, yeah, I wanted a nice car or fancy things, and so I knew that making money was a part of that. These days, I run a business for a very different reason. But in the beginning, I think that was part of the seed motivation. Well, the first idea was to really test the idea out. San Diego, Washington, D.C., and then later Raleigh, North Carolina served as our test markets to see if it was viable in different cities with different managers running it, different people making the advertising decisions. And it seemed to catch on in all three of these places, irrespective of the human factor. So we knew we had a concept there that we could at least work with in different places. And then from there, it was about really quantifying the results. So it was, putting those different cities into competition with each other. And that really is where we came up with the idea of running the business like a sports league. The way that we do today is, which city has the most hours going or is making the most revenue or profit, has the best quality sign spinners. And we started to compete in these different areas, and that really fueled the growth. So sometimes it's almost easier to have multiple locations than it is one. So I was a double major in international business and marketing in undergrad, and then my master's is in general management and business administration. So I think that education and getting a formal education doesn't necessarily make or break you as an entrepreneur, but it's like being allowed to take steroids because I understand the game in an entirely different manner than I think some people that just go into business for themselves. And running your own business while you're in school allows you to do a couple of things. Number one, you can apply what you're learning in school to the way that you're funding that you're forming the business. So you've got these very strong fundamentals, and this allows you to retain the information better. And in fact, I think a lot of the stuff from my textbooks is part of our operating manuals. Indirectly, it's just these fundamentals that I believe in, these theories on management and marketing that I was, studying at the time, and that naturally became part of our sales training or the way we run a sign spinning practice. And we still use the database that I built as part of a project in college. So I think all of this stuff really just helps you get in the right direction, and professors acting as free consultants are one of the most valuable resources that you have out there. Because when you're their student, they'll give you office hours and I think access to their network. And when you're not a student, that sort of thing would cost thousands of dollars. So taking advantage of the fact that you're in there and you have their attention is a great way to get your business going. Well, definitely, I do have a philosophy on the number of hours that you have in a day, and that's a big part of it. If, for instance, you know a lot of people that like to sleep 8 hours a day, and instead you cut that back, and I personally, I very rarely sleep more than six. Well, this extra 2 hours every single day gives me, over an extra 700 hours a year.
Wow. So
That's like an extra month. So what can you do with an extra month per year? And after 10 years in business, that extra 10 months goes a long way. And if you know people that sleep 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day or have trouble getting their butts out of bed, I mean, you can think about how that would multiply out. And when you carry that forward 5 years and 10 years, you can really see the difference between those people that, accomplish things and become successful and those that don't. Because while working smarter, not harder, and being efficient is part of the equation, I think showing up first and being the last one to leave goes a long way too. And good old fashioned work ethic is going to get a lot of stuff done. I think it's about getting a rhythm, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie, there's definitely coffee that's part of the equation for me, either coffee or tea. But another big part of the equation is exercise. And
Interesting.
having a couple of different types of exercise per day. Most people think, all right, I'm going to go to the gym. And, it's that big activity and that's their once a day thing. And if you do it like that, a lot of times you feel exhausted, I think, after that workout. But for me, I really like the idea of walking after a meal, walking the dog in the morning, maybe playing some basketball in the afternoon, or going for a science spinning session. But definitely kind of breaking it up with 15 to 20 to
I
30
like
minute
that.
workouts instead of just this blitz at the I'm going to lift as much as I can until my body's ready to break, and then I need to go home and pass out on the couch because that's not energizing. So
I
exercise for
like that
me
a
a lot
lot.
of times is an energizing experience. Usually it's the wake up times between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., depending on the night before. And I definitely like to start with a little bit of coffee, some jazz, usually some push ups and sit ups. Me and Gizmo go for either a walk or a run, depending on what I've got going on that morning. Since I've got a lot of clients and business partners on the East Coast, even if I wake up at 5, at 6 a.m., it's 9 for me on the East Coast. So I really got to start hitting the phones and sending out some initial emails. So really from 6 a.m. till 7 a.m., I'll get prepped for the day and do that. And at 7, I'll get to perhaps cook some breakfast or make my second round of phone calls. And then between 8 and 9, I'm getting ready. And at 9 o'clock, I can start working with my West Coast team. So the 9 to 5 kind of stuff kicks in, emails, phone calls, a lot of conference calls these days. Get to go out there and do some sign spinning a couple times a week. Today, when I'm done with you guys, we got practice here in North Hollywood at 4 p.m. So I get to go meet with the spinners, and that's pretty standard. We've got meetings with the whole team on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and then Saturdays and Sundays I get to spend some time with family and friends, and I usually end up driving by some sign spinners just because they're always out there. Yeah, and I wish I could say that's every day, but that's definitely the goal. And that is the point for me of being an entrepreneur is owning your own time and getting to set that schedule up as efficiently as possible so that you can work from home, spend time with your daughter if she's sick, or grandma or girlfriend or whatever it is. And I think that's one of the benefits that a lot of people don't think about when they start their own business is owning their own time. I even find it easier to do little things like go to the grocery store, to the doctor in the middle of the day, instead of having to do that kind of stuff in prime time when everybody else is fighting against rush hour traffic. So being an entrepreneur allows me, I think, to be more balanced than I would be allowed to if I had a corporate 9 to 5. And you get to design your company around values that are important to you, and things like doing community service or staying in shape, mentoring young people. These are things that are important to me and that I would want to do with my quote unquote free time. And so by building them into our company's operations, I'm allowed to do them as part of my quote unquote job. And so again, I find myself being more efficient because I'm accomplishing things in a lot of different areas that are important to me at the same time. And
Yeah.
I would love to have a situation like you do where I can basically call my business partner my spouse as well, because gosh, what a great way to travel the world and work at the same time. As long as she handles the money, we're good to go. So I really enjoy entrepreneurship. And these days, as a franchise company, each of our businesses is independently owned. So now I'm really kind of like an entrepreneur coach. I get to talk to the different business owners that carry my brand name and help them run a better business, help them make more money, and basically help them improve the quality of their life, and that involves them improving the quality of the life of the people around them. Creating jobs for young people in their community, donating advertising to nonprofit organizations, and giving cost-effective advertising solutions to businesses in their city. So when all of that stuff happens, I feel good, and I think that's one of the reasons that I do what I do. I think loyalty, and maybe I'm pretty stubborn too. And when people tell me to quit and go get a real job, it's always kind of like, I want to prove you wrong. So there's a little bit of that in there, and selfish pride. But for the most part, I think it's about the smiles, and nothing makes me feel better than seeing one of our businesses land a big contract, or to meet someone that's been spinning signs that really has a good time with the job, and you can see them having fun out there doing it on the corner. That really makes my day. So that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, for me it's definitely not natural. And there's days I hit the snooze button too. I think we're all human, so it definitely feels good to roll over sometimes. But for me, I literally have a whiteboard in my room, and it's a collage of pictures and ideas that help me stay balanced. And it's the way I have it placed, it's impossible for me not to see it first thing when I wake up in the morning. So that's a big part of it. And I found out in college too that I need to put the alarm clock on the other side of the room, and that if I put it by the bed, I always hit the snooze button. But if I have to walk across the room, then I'm already up. So I trick myself, and I've tried to make mornings fun and come up with a routine that I can do that doesn't really give me a headache. And so, I do a lot of stuff like clean or meditate or light activities like walk the dog in the morning, check my calendar. It doesn't have to be miserable, but getting some of that stuff out of the way early allows you to do more important stuff in the primetime hours. So that motivation and that desire to be the best, it has to be carefully crafted, if you want my opinion. I like the example of, I've heard of Kobe Bryant and all of the negative press that comes out in the newspapers or magazines. He puts it up on a bulletin board that's in his workout center. So every day when he's lifting and exercising, he sees all all these things like, oh, the Lakers can't win this year, Kobe's past his prime, and that's not accidental motivation. That's you managing yourself with the desire for greatness. And I think that if we do that, that really is what can separate you from the rest of the flock, whether it's being an entrepreneur or whether you're working for a company. I don't think it really matters. You just gotta have that heart. Oh, absolutely. I wake up feeling that way every day. I think if you're not on the edge between success and failure, then you're really not riding the wave. It's like having that edge in snowboarding. If you're just flat and you're just sliding down the mountain, you really don't have any control over it. You've got to be leaning into it. And that's really how you create the momentum. That's how you can turn. That's how you can navigate. You've got to be trying new things, leaning forward, leaning backwards in order to sort of make it. So I really, yeah, the more successful we are, the more risks I'm willing to take. The bigger our safety net gets in an ideal world. Sometimes that safety net's not as big as you think it is or as big as it needed to be. But If you experience a temporary setback, you just bounce right back. It's not about how many times you fall; you just got to get up. You know, I would say when I first started graduate school, it was 2008. Is that correct? Or 2009? And it was right when the housing bubble burst. So I had this huge Georgetown tuition bill, and within 2 to 3 months, 75% of our business disappeared because home builders had no more money to spend on advertising.
Wow,
And
75% of your business.
yeah, so
Oh
not
my
only
God.
did the revenue dry up, but a couple of them, the smaller builders, actually went bankrupt and ended up not being able to pay on service that we had already provided.
Wow.
So we had no future profit coming in to offset these losses. And we had this huge new expense. And so this was a really difficult time. And we had to go about reinventing the business and really going after a different type of client, changing the way we marketed, changing our sales material. So it was tough. And I had a lot less time on my hands because I was a full time graduate student. So it really required everybody else stepping up and taking on more responsibility in order to sort of navigate the rough waters. Yeah, I mean, I always had a car I could sell, so it's always back to square one if you really need to. But I think with no proper financing that's available, when you've been in business for 5 to 6 years, if you need money, you can go out there and really get it. It's not always going to be at the best interest rate, but if you've got invoices and credible clients and documented service or product delivery, then you can get money. And at least in America, it's not the same necessarily overseas in terms of access to capital, but it's doable here. So bankruptcy and quitting isn't really an option as far as I'm concerned. If you own the NBA, why would you stop running it? As long as there's people that want to play basketball and people that want to watch basketball games, fill the stadiums, figure out a way to make the numbers work on the back end. And that's really the position that I'm in as sort of the commissioner of the league these days is, I've got guys that love sign spinning, guys and girls, all over the world, and they do it because they love it. And I've got clients that really see this as an effective form of advertising. And I personally love doing it and love delivering great customer service. So as long as that's the case, I think that, we still have a business. And you could take away my legal entity or change my taxpayer ID tomorrow, and I'd be right back in business next week because it's just supply and demand. Well, and I feel I was fortunate. I'm an accidental entrepreneur that stumbled upon a great idea, and I was the first one to take it to market like this. So, it's just, I almost feel that I have an obligation to develop the concept. And success for me would be really being able to step away to a certain extent and know that there's somebody else that can take this company and take this idea and run with it, and that they're going to do a better job than I am. I mean, I would love to hand this off at some point. I've still got a lot of fuel left in the tank, but that would be ideal for me, is to be able to find that person. And whether that's a current business partner or somebody that's yet to come, you never know. But it's been great opportunity, and it's a continuous challenge. So. So I love leaders. I think people that can display leadership characteristics on their own are more valuable to my team at least because I would prefer to be able to delegate something to someone, empower them, give them the tools they need to get the job done, and then go out and take care of it. And then say, okay, let's see how you did. Instead of, hey, this is what I need you to do, and I'm going to watch you do it and tell you you either did it right or you did it wrong. So, these leadership characteristics, you can tell if people have initiative. If they've been the captain of a team or the president of an organization, or they start to talk about something that they went out there and did on their own, that's really what I prefer. Then I also look for creativity. I look for people that smile a lot during their interviews and that have sort of fun with anything. And, I'll ask them a high emotion question versus a low emotion question, like, greatest success or, tell me about your dog or your cat growing up, and then, your biggest failure, and see how they transition between those two things. And then I look for people that are balanced, that sort of fit this balanced lifestyle that I've been describing, a healthy diet, exercise, good family values, spiritual side, that kind of stuff. I want them to have those priorities in place so that I think I know they're more well rounded and they'll connect with a larger group of people and have stronger relationships. Yeah, hopefully everybody's seen Boiler Room. If not, Netflix or do whatever you got to do to rent it and watch it. It's about I think stock market sales and in the New York area, and you get that cold calling experience. And I think being an entrepreneur, you have to be in sales. You've got to learn how to sell yourself. You've got to learn how to overcome objection and do it quickly and not take no for an answer. And I think that this movie provides a great example of how to do that, and it's a lot of fun at the same time. So this one, it's really about the group of friends that founded the idea of skateboarding and doing tricks with a skateboard, whereas it used to just kind of be a mode of transportation. And they took advantage of the fact that there was a drought in Los Angeles and turned empty swimming pools into their half pipes and skate bowls. And this is what, modern day skateboarding is based off of. And as sign spinners, we try and do a lot of the same thing. We're going to turn a street corner into, our advertising canvas. And so we look for great street corners the same way these guys looked for empty swimming pools. And we try and do the coolest tricks. And we're a group of friends from a beach town. So that's my movie right there. Right, so this is about the street artist Banksy, and again, it's the same thing. It's taking an urban landscape and really transforming it into your canvas as an artist, and realizing that there's art in everything around us, and that you really just have to sort of open your eyes and see that. Whether it's the guy on the street is really a performer, or the side of that building is really a blank canvas just waiting for a street artist. As an entrepreneur, these are opportunities, and I think when you've got that type of lens, you see these opportunities differently, and that's one of the things that you can take away from that applies to the business world. So my big philosophy on starting your own business is just jump. Go out there and do it. Come up with a name, get a website, put it on a business card, and make that commitment to yourself. And the more of those business cards that you pass out to people, the larger that commitment will become.
Wow,
Because
I like that.
after a
Never heard
year,
that.
2 years, you passed out 5,000, 10,000 of them, people will call you and they'll ask for that company. And it's better to say that it still exists.